Ladies and gentlemen, I can see we are about 20 participants. I only hope that all the presenters are in the house. Dennis, are you here? Dennis, are you here, Dennis? Dennis, can you hear me? Hello, Agnes, can you hear me?
Hi, Irene, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear you, Irene. This is Tigis.
Thank you, Tigis. I was wondering why no one is speaking. I thought they couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
All right, I think we are now at 20. It's a good time. I think we are good quorum. I just wanted to find out if all the presenters are in the house before we start, but maybe we can start with introductions and know who is here. I can see we have at least Dennis is here. I can see Dennis is here, Agnes, Nara Vegetables, Dr. Kibati, Dr. Wangila, Dr. Kere, Dr. Francis, Mr. Francis, Jen Rose, Kennedy. Yeah, we are quite a number. So let me see, let me just find out if all the speakers are present before we start. And also get our principal to join the meeting so that he can give his welcome note. So Tigis for now, because I can't find Dennis, if you could kindly go through introductions as I ask our principal to step in to give his opening, his welcome note. And I don't know if Domenico is here yet. If not, Dennis, could you please reach out to Domenico so that before we start? Thank you, Tigis. Kindly take over the introduction before I come back. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us today. And also, I'm very much appreciative of having this meeting as we discuss about African indigenous vegetables. So that we know at least who is in the room, let us start introducing ourselves. And then as I call your names, feel free to open up your mic. If you are not able to use your mic, please feel free to introduce yourself using the chat. Okay, let's start from Agnes Mitiko. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll give a couple of minutes, like few seconds waiting for everyone, and then I'll continue to the next name, Dr. Kibati.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Kibati. I'm from Arvist. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kibati. Okay, next is Dr. Wangila.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Tigit, how are you, Dr. Reed? And everyone else, good morning. My name is Dr. Wangila Fanis. I'm from the University of Kabianga, and also the director in charge of gender and development there. I'm equally, for this particular meeting, I'm the director of Njoro Pressure Schools, and I'll be presenting on behalf of WASA for GCSAYN. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wangila. Next, Duncan. Okay. Fadihil. Fadihil, we can't hear you. Okay, who is connecting by the name Nara Vegetables?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Nara. On behalf of Nara Vegetables, my name is Fides. Nara, we are a company growing, drying, and packing all indigenous vegetables and seasonings.
Okay, welcome. We are happy to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, Dennis, are you there now? Okay. Emmanuel? Francis?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Francis Oduor from University of Kabianga. I'm an agricultural economist and also an expert in climate smart agriculture. For today, I'm here actually to learn and even pick areas of interest in terms of economic evaluations of African indigenous vegetables. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Francis. And all of us are here also to learn from each other. And thank you, also looking forward for all your inputs. Thank you. Janeros?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm Janeros Lusweti from the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology. I'll also be representing the GCSAYN, the WASA group, and I'll also be having a presentation on knowledge, attitudes, and practices regarding indigenous vegetables. I look forward to a fruitful day.
To all, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you, Janero. Hi, Domenico. Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Fine, fine. I can stay just 1 minute. I just want to really welcome all the participants and say good luck for the meeting. And I think that is a great initiative. Unfortunately, I can't stay long, but the meeting is recording. So I just want to say that it's a pleasure and honor for GCHYN to host this initiative, and thanks Irene to bring in that, and thanks to all the colleagues that are going to intervene, because I think that it's important to for the network to have such a knowledge in deep on the vegetable knowing and so on. So I have unfortunately need to go, but thank you very much for organizing that, and the best wishes.
Okay, thank you very much,
Domenico. Thank you, Domenico and Tigist, for standing in.
Yeah, you're very much welcome. And yeah, thank you, Domenico, for making the time out of your busy schedule. And we understand that you are tied up, so we can let you go. And we will share the recording. Irene, are we recording? Please.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we are recording.
Can you put on the recording for that?
Yes,
okay.
We are recording.
All right then. Okay.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the principal to come in and give his opening welcome notes before we start, but he'll be here in a few minutes. He's actually just joining.
Okay, we are going through the introductions. We are not done yet, so let's go through that, and then I'll give it over to you.
Okay.
Okay, Kennedy, if you can introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kennedy Agon from the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology, and I'm here to learn and share the ideas on African indigenous vegetable. Thank you.
Thank you. Lydia?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am Lydia Ogayo from the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology, and I am here to learn about indigenous vegetables. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Welcome. Nancy?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy Jogu. I work with the county Department of Agriculture, and I'll be presenting a short presentation on strategies we are employing to promote indigenous vegetables. Thank you.
Professor Biota? Okay, Rogers Manungo.
Hello, Tigis. Let me cut you short. I can see the principal is here already. I think we'll go on with introductions a little later, but let me recognize the presence of our principal, Mr. Sami Chemoiwa, who will be here very shortly. But before that, I want to just recognize the presence of Tyrus from UNIC. I can see you're here. I've not had you introduce yourself, Professor Budan, and all the other persons represented here. Sir, you're welcome to the first ever continental dialogue on African indigenous vegetables. And let me give you this opportunity to give your welcome note. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Irene. Amujambo. I think that is the best greeting I can give. One, I'm sorry for joining in a bit late, and as you have been told, I'll be here briefly before I step out because I'm in another engagement. Now, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of us to this forum, and thank you all for taking your time to be with us for this discussion, this forum. We are trying to see as an institution how we can promote indigenous food with vegetables and all that, and to see how we can leverage that to improve the communities around us. And I thought the best thing was for us to have a forum where we can all discuss, share, and get to know how much we can do to alleviate poverty and improve sustainability and leverage on all the knowledges we have. Because sometimes you'll find that some of these things end up disappearing if we are not able to document and have them properly utilized. Now, I want to thank my team, that is the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology, or the Rift Valley National Polytechnic. We are having two names because we are transitioning. And I think it's good for our colleagues or our partners to start knowing that we are also transiting into a national polytechnic, which will take us about 3 months to transit to that. Now, I want to believe that we will be able to have a fruitful discussion. Please, let's share all that we can and maximize the opportunity we have today. And let's build on what we do today so that we can have more engagements in future as we progress on. I have a council meeting in progress, so you will allow me to step out, but have all my blessings in whatever you do. My name is Sami Chemoyo. I'm an engineer in agricultural engineering field, and I'm really interested in improving lives and in various ways, including in diverse ways, and bringing everybody on board so that we can all benefit. Otherwise, Madam Irene, I'm sorry for being so brief and refusing to be in the meeting, but at least I've managed to join you for the opening.
Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Irene.
you very much. Thank you very much, sir. We are indeed very grateful to have you here. I know this is a sacrifice on your part because you're very busy, but we are very grateful for having your blessings. And as we move on, we know that we will have discussion. We'll later share with your office to see the way forward. Thank you very much, sir.
Asante sana. And I'm enjoying being under the tree.
Oh, that's nice. And just before you go, I wanted to tell you which countries are represented here. I can see there is Nigeria. I can see there is Zambia. I can see we have persons from the UN. We have Professor Bivdan, I think he's from Nigeria. We have Tigis from Ethiopia. And I don't know who else I may have missed out. And earlier, before you came in, Domenico was here from Italy, but he just
I was
out.
in with him. I saw him. I met him.
Oh, saw him. Okay. So we have Boniswa, we have Obi, we have Dr. Kere from the University of Kabianga. We have Kenya represented here. I mean, it's a continental dialogue, and I can safely say Africa is here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to really thank you. I don't know whether we will not be able to go back to the introductions, but I don't know if there are any members who are here, particularly those from other countries that I may not have mentioned. For the Kenyans who are here, thank you very much for joining this dialogue. This is the first ever continental dialogue on African indigenous vegetables. This dialogue is premised on the Africa We Want, Agenda 2063 by the African Union. Step by step, we would like to transform Africa's food systems, and we are anchoring this dialogue on healthy and well-nourished citizens, which is one of the pillars, and also modernizing agriculture for increased productivity and production. In this dialogue, we have put together a set of speakers who are drawn from Africa, mainly from Kenya. We also have representation from Nigeria. We have representation from Ethiopia, Zambia, and also other countries. They may not everyone will be speaking at this event, but the fact that you're here, it really means that this dialogue is going to go just beyond this very meeting that we have. And we would like to see what comes out of it. Could we have more dialogues? Could we have, action being taken to ensure that we have a food secure Africa by 2030 and also beyond, as envisaged by Agenda 2063. Now, I want to take this opportunity because I know that we also have Mr. Tyrus here. Tyrus, I know you'll be leaving shortly, but can you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from? We are glad to have you here. Tyrus?
Hello. Yes, thank you, Irene, for that warm welcome. My name is Tyrus Wainaina. I work with the UN Information Service here in Nairobi, and I'm glad to join this forum just to get more knowledge about the indigenous plants. Well, that is not my area, but I would like to know something extra, probably, in terms of the benefits that indigenous plants just help us as individuals. Thank you so much, Irene, for that welcome. I know I'll be having another meeting, and I'll leave you just before the meeting ends, within the next 20 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tyrus. Boniswa, if you're here, please introduce yourself. I don't know whether you had introduced yourself earlier.
No, I haven't introduced. Thanks, Irene. I'm Boniswa from South Africa, and I'm representing Climate Smart Agriculture Work of South Africa. I'm just listening, expecting to gain a lot of information so that we can really see what we can do this side of the South of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Boniswa. Is Professor Oladell, are you here? Professor Oladel, I don't know if you're here. There's who else is here? Let me see. Dan, I don't know whether you have introduced yourself, but I think we need to just move on from introductions now that I don't know who else is here, but thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I also want to recognize the presence of the proprietor of Nara Vegetables, Madam Fides. Are you here? I think
yes, please.
Please introduce
yes,
yourself.
Irene.
We are having this discussion because of people like you who are already in the business. Just introduce yourself, please, shortly.
Thank you, Irene. My name is Fides from Nara Vegetables. As I had said earlier, we grow, dry, and pack all indigenous vegetables and seasonings. Our mode of growing is basically organic, and they're out there in the markets. Irene is one of our clients, and we're hoping to do better, learn more from this forum and many other forums that will follow, and expand our knowledge and improve on our farming. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Fides. Now we can now move to the second phase of our program. I want to request everyone, please mute your mics as we move on, so that we don't have any interruptions. This dialogue brings together the whole of Africa, and I'm praying that as we move on, we will be able to learn more in as far as indigenous vegetables are concerned. We also have in the house Mr. William of Ampath. Sorry, I think let me have him introduce himself before we move on. William from Ampath, are you here?
Irene, I'm listening. My
Mr.
name is
William,
William.
Okay.
I work for academic model providing access to healthcare. That's Ampath, based in Eldoret. And for us is the recognition that there's a role that African leafy vegetables plays for our health outcomes. And we've used this to promote them in the communities that we work with in Western Kenya. So this is a great conversation started here. Thank you, Irene.
Oh, thank you very much, William. Sorry, I had not seen you earlier. Now let's go back to the dialogue. The dialogue begins in a minute. And as we move on to this step of the dialogue, please let's mute our mic so that we do not interrupt the presentation. I don't know if I need to ask people. I think who's Fides, kindly mute. Let's have only the person that is speaking. Let us have only the person that is speaking with their mic on so that we do not interrupt the dialogue. Dennis, are you here? Dennis? Dennis? Okay, well, I don't know that Dennis is here, but Mr. Mugera Gitari, please mute. We are about to begin. Our first presenter will be done by Agnes Mitheko of the Rift Valley National Polytechnic. She'll tell us about her presentation. Every presenter will take about 8 minutes to make the presentation. Remember, this is a dialogue, and this dialogue is supposed to spark conversation and spark research, and also spark you and I to begin this discussion on African indigenous vegetables. Let's also remember that we already have businesses ongoing. We already have people out here that are attempting to enter into the business of African indigenous vegetables. Let's remember that we have people in our populations that require the nutrients that are in African indigenous vegetables. And let's also remember that these vegetables are quite resilient. So as we have this discussion, it is something that we need to improve on. It is something that we need to keep speaking about until we can have African indigenous vegetables adopted the world over. So thank you very much. Let's welcome our first speaker, Agnes Mitheko of the Rift Valley National Polytechnic. Over to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Agnes Mitheko, a nutritionist at Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology. And I have been given a task to do a presentation on the nutritional and economical value of indigenous. Before we get to the knowledge on the nutritional value of these vegetables, I thought it is better we get to understand a brief introduction on what these vegetables are. And indigenous vegetables, and most likely they are referred to as traditional vegetables, they have been best defined as species that are locally important for the sustainability of economies, human nutrition and health, and social systems. Now, these vegetables, they are yet to gain a global recognition to the same extent to the vegetables commodities such as the tomatoes and cabbages. And the African indigenous vegetables, which I'm going to abbreviate them as AIVs, they are also, which have also been referred as African traditional vegetables, they hold a potential to improve nutrition and increase the dietary diversity of rural households. These plants that have originated on the continent of cultivation and domestication to African conditions. They have been used in form of leaves.
Nani anaweza nikwambia kama nilikuanga hii shule ama sikuanga?
Ni kama umeingia.
Root.
Just a minute, Agnes, please. Let me.
A lot of noises background.
Yeah, that's why I want people to mute. Rhoda, please mute. Please mute your mic so that we listen to the person that is speaking. Rhoda, please mute. Go on.
Okay, I was saying the African indigenous vegetables, they have a long history of cultivation and domestication to African conditions, and they are most likely used as leaves, fruits, or roots, and they are acceptable and used as vegetables throughout many customs, many habits, dietary habits or traditions. They have been incorporated in many traditional habits, traditional customs, and traditional dietary habits. Now, these species currently, they have not yet gotten the recognition, and they are yet to, they deserve much greater recognition and investment, especially more so in agricultural research and development. And they are as they have presently. That is, presently they have not yet, they are yet to gain those recognition in agriculture and agricultural research. These vegetables, they are consumed and enjoyed locally, and they can be produced to give a profitable economy in both rural and urban environments. And therefore, the vegetables themselves make a primary candidates for greater use of crop biodiversity in horticulture. In many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, indigenous vegetables have been added as an important nutritional value to the diets of locals for hundreds of years. That is, they have in existence for as many years as we can recall. Now, sad enough is that women have been left to be in charge of cultivation of these vegetables, since there is a notable relation of these vegetables to the rural farming, of which in rural farming, women have been left to be in charge of family nutrition, and they have been more involved in cultivating them, collecting these indigenous vegetables for their own use in household use, for food consumption use, or even for sale to make a living. Now, the indigenous vegetables have been pointed to be vegetables of higher levels of micronutrients, and these nutrients, they are greater than their modern or exotic counterparts, which are now currently being regularly consumed across the region. Now, however, in the recent years, there has been a noticeable reduction in cultivation and consumption of these indigenous vegetables across sub-Saharan Africa. And in some communities in Africa, cultivation and consumption of these indigenous vegetables, as I said earlier, they have been neglected to the rural areas, and they have been made to be left to the concern of older population, especially more so the rural women. Now, these vegetables tend to be of higher nutritional value. They are more nutrient dense in some of the micronutrients that are important in fighting and prevention of arising non-communicable diseases. There has been, despite all this knowledge of nutritional value of these vegetables, there are less information concerning them, more so especially where they are in plenty in Africa. Now, before we go to the benefits themselves, we need to understand that these indigenous vegetables are nutrient dense, and they help in mineral deficiencies, fighting the hidden hunger, impacting positively on their well-being and productivity of the population. For example, I'll just give an example of one of the indigenous vegetable that is widely consumed, that is amaranth, and African eggplant. They are very rich in micronutrients such as iron and vitamin A, compared, for example, to their counterpart, the vegetables such as cabbage. They have been shown to contain 57 times more vitamin A precursor and 13 times more iron and 8 times more calcium as compared to their counterparts, the cabbages and tomatoes. And that is according to a researcher, Yang and Keding, in 2009. When we go to the benefits of African, the IIVs, African indigenous vegetables, I came across, I have already highlighted 3 major benefits. That is the nutritive value, agronomic advantages, and income generating and employment opportunities from these vegetables. Starting with the nutritive value, the nutritive value of African indigenous vegetables are higher, and these vegetables contain high levels of minerals, especially calcium, iron, and phosphorus. They also contain significant amounts of vitamins and proteins. And in most cases, the mineral and vitamin content is normally equivalent or higher than that found in popular exotic vegetables like cabbages, as I had mentioned earlier. They are therefore valuable sources of nutrition in rural areas and even urban areas if well incorporated in the agricultural diversity. Now, they are capable of contributing substantially to protein, mineral, and vitamin intake to the populations who indulge in them. Now, however, there are some factors that research have associated them with affecting their nutrient content. And this is a good information that we need to discuss on how to improve on this nutrient content of these vegetables, even as we go ahead and encourage massive growth and even create awareness among people who relate these indigenous vegetables to poverty and rural agriculture. These factors affecting nutrient contents of the African indigenous vegetables include stage of growth, because as these vegetables age, the nutrient content tends to reduce. Then another factor is storage factor. How are these vegetables stored even after they have been harvested? what is the length of the shelf life for these vegetables to still contain their nutrient value, even as the person or the consumer gets to them and consumes them. Another factor is the cooking methods employed in preparation and even preparation and serving. Then another factor is food processing and packaging. How do you preserve how do you process them so that even if you want to conserve them to reduce on the post-harvesting loss, will the nutrients still be after they have taken them? Now, I'll give a few examples of how these vitamins or the nutritive value may be affected by those factors you have just mentioned. And one example is vitamin C, which is in plenty among these vegetables. A loss of between 57% and 78% is normally attained after 30 minutes of cooking. And then vitamin A, there is low conservation rate of the beta carotene, which is the one that is available in these vegetables, and which is a precursor to vitamin A that is normally utilized by the human. So we normally utilize vitamin A, and it has to be converted from the beta carotene obtained from these vegetables. Then for the minerals, calcium and iron and zinc, their availability tends to be affected by those factors such as the phytochemicals, like phytates that bind them, making them unavailable. So this is something that we really need as researchers to identify ways of counteracting them so that even as we consume these vegetables, all the benefits that they have, the body is able to attain them against all those factors that may affect their availability. Now, therefore, I pose a question there, or a suggestion that there is need for more studies on bioavailability of such micronutrients, and these micronutrients are calcium, iron, and zinc, considering the levels of phytochemicals that are present in these vegetables. What can we do so that the nutritive value can still be availed in these vegetables? Another suggestion I pose is we need further investigation in order to elucidate the medicinal properties of these African indigenous vegetables. And I'm glad that there's a presenter who is going to give us such, and maybe we can get our answers from there. Now, the second benefit is agronomic advantages. These vegetables tend to adapt very well to harsh climatic conditions and disease infestation, and they are easier grown in comparison as compared to their exotic counterparts. The next one under that is that they produce seeds under tropical conditions, which at times is harsh, and then they also have a short growth period, with most of them being ready for harvesting within 3 to 4 weeks. They can also flourish better under sustainable and environmental friendly cropping conditions like intercropping and use of stresses. They can also flourish under sustainability and environmentally friendly cropping conditions. On the income generating benefit or economical value of these vegetables, the African indigenous vegetables have considerable potentials as cash income earners, more so in the rural areas and also in the urban areas, if proper strategies can be adopted to ensure there is farming of the same even in the urban environment. In conclusion, I can say, given the hundreds of indigenous vegetables consumed worldwide, their accumulated value for mankind is considerable, and many such species have received little scientific attention to date. More effort in research and development would likely produce rewarding results as productivity increases in these neglected crops is much easier to realize than the intensively researched staple cereals. And I will conclude with some questions here for all of us to digest and discuss. How can we encourage greater consumption of such diverse and nutritious indigenous vegetables, knowing that changing dietary habits is a difficult exercise? And this one is very clear to all of us that majority of population will relate with consumption of these vegetables to poor status or even rural setups. Number two question to all of us is how can we improve post-harvest management to make market change more effective and profitable, and as well as preservation of the nutrients in these vegetables. Number three question to all of us is how can we overcome the lack of quality seed to enhance production? Because I believe even in producing these vegetables, most of us will keep on recycling the seeds from what we have harvested, and probably with the time it erodes the quality and even quantity of production of these vegetables. Number four question, how can we rescue, conserve, and utilize the genetic diversity of cultivated and wild forms of indigenous vegetables under threat of genetic erosion? Number five, how can we utilize these indigenous vegetables to help produce sufficient quantities and quality food, given the increased levels of biotic and abiotic stresses driven by climate change, as well as existing rural-urban migration trends? So with the increasing rural-urban migration trends, this activity has been associated with reduction in production of these vegetables in the rural areas. And when in the urban areas, they are not ready to embrace the continuity of production of the same. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for your presentation. It was very informative. And as we move on, I want to say that the next presenter would have been Dr. Wangila, but she's in transit. She'll present a little later. Let me move on now to Tigist. Tigist, we have moved on to you because Dennis is also trying to do something, getting himself together for the presentation. Tigist, if you're ready. Tigist. In the meantime, Professor Budan, please mute. Professor Budan, please mute. We hear quite some noises from your end. Professor Budan. Dennis, are you able to mute Professor Budan? Because I don't know whether he's probably not able to. I don't have the right to do it right now. Dennis, if you're here, please mute Professor Budan.
Let's try to manage. Hello? I'll try to speak. Yeah, Prof, can you mute?
Okay. I don't know if he's muted. Has he muted? I can't be able to see from my end. Okay. So Tigist, you can take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Irene. Thank you for having me, and thank you for arranging this platform to be able to discuss about African indigenous vegetables. My name is Tigist Ndashau, and I work as a consultant on climate action policy advocacy, and I support the Global Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network with a special focus on climate change and health, as well as representing the network with the African Union and UNECA here in Addis. Let me put off my video to minimize the disturbance, and then I will be speaking about what the contribution of these indigenous plants is to food security in Africa. So indigenous plants, when we mention indigenous plants for food security in Africa, we need to understand first what food security is. What do we mean by food security? So food security is the state of having reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. So in this definition, we have to pick at least, I want us to emphasize a few of the points that there needs to be reliable access, then there needs to be sufficient quantity, and it also needs to be affordable, and it also needs to be nutritious when we mean by food security. So it is estimated that a fifth of the African population, about 278 million, is undernourished, and 55 million of its children under the age of 5 are stunted due to severe malnutrition. So you can understand how vast the impact is when there is no sufficient food or where there is no nutritious food. So African indigenous plants have the potential to play a central role in addressing food insecurity and associated health concerns in Africa. But most of these indigenous foods are underutilized, as previously being mentioned, emphasized by the previous presentation. Understanding the historical and current uses of African indigenous plants is essential to develop effective programs and policies to promote the sustainable production and consumption of these local edible plants for food security and sustainability. So better knowledge is needed on the production, processing, and marketing opportunities. And we are hoping that this platform and this dialogue and this discussion will create that opportunity. For these indigenous plants that have been underutilized, and also we need to amplify the voice, and we need to amplify and promote the value addition that this indigenous will bring. So for this, policy makers need to come on board. They play an important role in promoting value chains that are inclusive of poor rural and female farmers and producers who aspire to bring these nutritious indigenous foods to a wider market. We need to raise awareness on the role and value of underutilized indigenous food resources in dietary diversity and household food security. We need to share experiences and lessons learned for the promotion of partnerships and networking among stakeholders at all levels, and to identify policy options and strategic actions for the promotion of underutilized indigenous food resources. So what are some of the strategies that we can use to promote indigenous foods? Because they play a very, very crucial role in terms of having and at least addressing the food security gap that we face, especially in African countries. You can imagine like the number of occurrences of hunger in multiple African countries that is occur and amplified by now the climate change that we are facing. So what are some of the strategies that can be used to promote these indigenous vegetables? So the first one, as mentioned earlier, is engage policymakers in promoting indigenous foods, integrate food biodiversity in government policies and programs. And governments have to support the various programs and initiatives that are undergoing, and also be able to support research activities that are being carried out in the different universities, and also vocational technical institutions like RFT. We need to develop a system for documentation of this, some of the traditional knowledges and practices of the farmers that are involved in producing these indigenous vegetables, because they have that knowledge, they have that touch, they have that niche to be able to really expand on the production and availability of that. Because earlier when we mentioned about food security, one of the components is availability, right? Accessibility. So we have to have a system that's able to support the traditional knowledge and practices of farmers. We need to enhance farmers' incentives and promote processing and preservation and marketing strategies. We need to link with educators and influence the curriculum development at schools and universities. We also need to promote the science and support and bring and look into how we can integrate the traditional indigenous knowledge with the scientific research. We need to also focus and be able to solicit support for more advocacy and promotion of these indigenous vegetables, because they are really, really underutilized. And there is lack of also sometimes with consumer awareness. And we hope that this also, the dialogue that has been being conducted, will be able to be disseminated, and it will be used as part of at least creating awareness about the value of these indigenous vegetables. We also need to work on partnerships and networks. We need to enhance multi-sector engagement, a regional network of partners to share knowledge, information, and research findings. We need to promote the public and private partnerships for promoting indigenous foods and value addition. And when we mean by value addition, we need to really see on how we are able to support the farmers on like growing, increasing production, and also like bringing from farm to table, you know, like along the value chain. How can we add value on these indigenous vegetables in the packaging, in the preparation, in the different cuisines? I'm looking forward to hear on the presentations on the cuisines and everything. So how can we add value to that so that we would be able to really address the food security that's facing most African countries? And support better networking and linkages using the available tools like the internet, the web-based tools, also the various social medias, and exchange of scientists, technicians, researchers, and others between academia and universities. So I think this is what I have for today. I'm happy to address any questions that will be raised later on. But back to you, Irene, and again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tigist, on your address. We are indeed going to be asking questions at the end of this forum. So our next presenter is Dr. Wangila from the University of Kabianga. Dr. Wangila, if you're here, she'll be speaking on the medicinal value of African indigenous vegetables. Dr. Wangila? Dr. Wangila, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Just 1 minute. I share my screen. I don't know whether I have the rights to share the screen.
Yeah, just try. Let me see.
But yeah, maybe if you can share, if you can give me rights, I share my screen.
Dennis, Dennis is the one that has rights. I don't know. Let me get in touch with him.
Okay.
But you could try and tell me if it's working on your end.
Not yet. I'm told disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, just a minute, please.
Or if it is not possible, I just proceed.
I think you can proceed. Dennis is telling me he's also trying to sort out with Domenico.
Let me proceed.
Just proceed, Dr.
All right, let me just do that so that for purposes of saving time. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon from wherever we are, and good evening. I don't know whether there's a good night. I'm Dr. Wangila Fanis. I'll be presenting on African indigenous vegetables, particularly on the medicinal value of the vegetables. And I'm glad to come after all these other presenters, the two presenters, I think 2 or 3, and they have highlighted quite some information about what we have. I had previously introduced myself. I am a lecturer, a senior lecturer at the University of Kabianga, and my area is chemistry, analytical chemistry. I deal with food additives, biocomposites, and environmental toxicity. And while I do that, I find this a very, good point to start, especially so that a lot of these vegetables form part of our additives on the table, as well as what we also add into the food, even as we cook. And yes, vegetables are part of plants, which human beings consume as food, or in this case, as part of a meal. And looking at the plant resources of tropical Africa, they gave us an estimation of 6,376 useful indigenous African plants. And in this case, out of these 6,376, 397 are vegetables. So like we talk about indigenous vegetables or African indigenous vegetables have quite a percentage on what we have as useful indigenous plants, which can be applied in so many areas. Now, why these African indigenous vegetables? One Tigist has actually mentioned the climate adaptability of these particular vegetables. And also, I think it was Madam Mitheka, she also mentioned the high micronutrient content. She was able to mention the fact that these vegetables have proteins, they have vitamins, and so much and so forth. And so particularly as we talk about this, I'm looking at how then valuable is what the composition of these vegetables are, even as we consume. And of course, considering that we are talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, as Tigist has mentioned, we are looking at even how to use African indigenous vegetables to eliminate poverty, zero hunger, good health, and of course, the well-being. So like Mitheka said, a lot of women are actually the ones who plan the diet in the homes. And so even as they do this, I think there is need to create awareness amongst the planners of diet so that even as they do this, considering that they want to use the indigenous vegetables for nutritive value, then they have to do it with a very, with the information about what each of those vegetables have to offer. So even in the same breath, we find that women and men prefer vegetables a lot for consumption, and not alone as a side, as a meal, but probably because they are combined with others. And so the urban and rural dwellers, for example, in Kenya, consume almost 147 to 73 kilograms of vegetables per capita per day. So you realize it is part of a meal that we cannot just, swab off or rather dismiss. And therefore, we need to look at what value it has in terms of either nutritional or in terms of the medicinal aspect. Though even as we talk about this, we still realize that we have very poor diets across. So Mitheka, I think it is important that this is highlighted in line with the nutritional disorders that arise and the diseases in many parts of Africa. And one good thing, or rather the benefit of having this indigenous vegetable is that they are very cheap and very, easily accessed. Besides just the economical value, even the nutritional value is very important. Now, going down to what we are supposed to be covering, how else do we understand the nutritional value of vegetables if really we cannot understand how to classify these vegetables? So there are about 7 classifications of our vegetables, considering that these are plants which are eaten or used, as well as classified according to how they are consumed rather, and even the handling after harvest. So vegetables can either be roots or bulbs. And I know we are quite aware of this. We are talking about things like garlic. Garlic is a bulb. Fruits. We also look at, for example, kitchens. Pulses is also another category of vegetables, that is beans and peas and many others, lentils. We have flowers. We eat this edible, we find edible flowers as part of vegetables. If you talk about artichoke or broccolis, these are actually flowers. We also consume seeds in terms of vegetables, like the legumes. We have the fungi. If you talk about mushrooms, we have the leaves and greens. Talk about sukuma wiki, talk about cabbage. I know this has also been mentioned previously. So as we look at this, you realize that there are those plants which we can actually find medicinal value by cooking, or they are consumed raw as we produce them, only cleaning is done. And so it is necessary that we understand how we can actually obtain the nutritional value and the medicinal value from respective categories of vegetables. Now, while we do this, what we are looking at basically for medicinal value, this arises from the chemicals which are found within these leafy plants. Much of it is the phytochemicals. And of course, talking about phytochemicals, these are chemicals within the plant material, which are actually meant to serve as either antioxidants, anti-cancer, anti-tumor, all those that we talk about, those diseases that affect man. So phytochemicals come in various, in various categories. We have the polyphenols, what we call, these are actually chemicals in the classes of phenolics, and they are actually basically acidic in nature. And we also have flavonoids. Flavonoids is what actually gives flavor to our foodstuffs. Then we have alkaloids, we have terpenoids and carotenoids. I know Mitheka had mentioned something about the beta carotenes and the likes. That is basically the carotenoids within our food matrices. Now, considering the medicinal value of our African indigenous vegetables, therefore, we'll be asking ourselves, what is the composition of the plant that I'm eating? How best can I get the value out of the plant? Is it by cooking, by blanching, by roasting, by frying, or probably if I can just wash and consume? Now, there are two cases here. One, we can actually cook our vegetables. But what are the conditions for cooking those vegetables is what gives us the medicinal value of that vegetable. Number two, what is this that we are using for cooking of those vegetables? Like, for example, if we say we are cooking them in oil and we are cooking them in water, those are two different conditions for obtaining the medicinal value of a given plant. And so they are both the positive and the negative aspect as far as obtaining the medicinal value of a plant in terms of processing methods that we use, either cooking or whichever other method that we could be talking about. And so even as we look at the value that comes with the plant, we also need to understand how much of this plant should we take at a sitting. Because then again, we also end up consuming so much that it becomes even toxic to our own systems. And so that is also another very key aspect that we need to look at. Now, there are various biological functions of indigenous vegetables, even as we look at the medicinal value. Now, we have what we call the antioxidants. For example, when we go into the sunlight, we always talk about UV rays. So what is this that can help us to, take rid or get rid of this effect from UV rays? That is the antioxidants. Sometimes we consume them the way they are. Others we process and we add into various aspects of matrices. For example, we eat as food. Others we make smoothies. Others we even cook in cakes. Others there are different forms in which we can consume so that we attain these antioxidants within our African indigenous vegetables. Some are also consumed as part of antimicrobials because one of the biological functions of these vegetables is offering the antimicrobial uses. We have antibacterials, we have antidiabetics, We have antihypertensions. There is also erectile function to these active compounds in African indigenous vegetables, so that we also get rid of these neurodegenerations, age-related aspects. Anti-cancer, we have seen quite a lot. People have eaten a lot of carrots, juices, because they want to get rid of these cancer-containing materials. Then we have the immunomodulators, we have hypo, and there's quite a lot that we get as biological functions of indigenous vegetables. How I wish that I was able to share my screen so that we can actually see some of the plants that I'll be talking about. Now, among the medicinal values, we have plants which will give us some of those chemical matrices. And considering the group that I'm talking to, I'm trying to run away from very complex chemical terms. However, I may just as well have to use in some areas. So we are saying that green leafy vegetables, and in this case, we are talking about African indigenous vegetables, have been used in management of diabetes mellitus. Now, we all know amaranthus as a weed. Initially, it was a weed, but right now is actually one of those indigenous African vegetables, which is very rich. Other than iron, I think Mitheka mentioned that, and among others, phosphorus and the likes, we also find that when we consume this particular plant, it gives us the amylase. We call it the alpha amylase or glucosidase, which actually inhibits issues to do with diabetes mellitus. And I'm sure those of us who have interacted with our friends and relatives with diabetes, you have realized other than amaranthus, we also have other weeds, even pumpkin leaves. We have this kind of plants that we use in controlling of diabetes. Number two, area of biological function and how we can attribute these plants to medicinal value is the cardiovascular diseases. Now, this is one area that is affecting the developing countries. Much as we are running away from indigenous vegetables, we need to get closer to those indigenous vegetables, because particularly for cardiovascular diseases, we find a lot of vegetables. Like, for example, if you look at these bitter gourds, they are called Momodica caran, I don't know those scientific names, but it is a bitter gourd. It's very rich in the markets. We find quite a lot of it in the market. It's a common herb that has been consumed as a vegetable for medicinal purposes in different parts of the world, including even Africa. And so we want to encourage even the consumption of these indigenous vegetables. When you look at the erectile dysfunction, for example, a lot of vegetables have been also noted to have high bioactive compounds that manage or treat erectile dysfunction. We have the neurodegenerative diseases. We can manage age-related diseases using indigenous vegetables, or rather the bioactive compositions that come from indigenous vegetables. As mentioned earlier, we have the polyphenols, we have the carotenoids and the likes. So each of these vegetables have a specific class of bioactive compounds which we harness from. And as I mentioned earlier, it depends on the process of preparing that vegetable for you to consume and get the maximum potential from the bioactive compositions. And so as we talk about memory loss, cognitive dysfunctions, the neuro damage, and of course, even death, there are cases where age-related diseases can be controlled by consuming indigenous related vegetables. For example, some studies have indicated that Moringa oleifera leaves have been reported to modulate some of these diseases that particularly affect the brain. I have seen members, a lot of people use ginseng. Ginseng is actually from an indigenous plant. They're using it to improve on their memory lapses. We have seen bitter leaf and water bitter leaves extracts. These have been used in relation to brain dysfunctions. How do we manage our neurodegenerative diseases using indigenous vegetables? So you are here probably, and you're looking at how to improve on your, age-related, health issues. We are particularly talking about indigenous vegetables and how you can actually apply them in your system. Now, as I have talked about this health-related aspect and how the medicinal value of the indigenous vegetables come in handy, depending on the bioactive compounds that are present, our processing method also affects what we are going to consume. Now, there are cases when, for example, even our cutting method of these indigenous vegetables will affect the bioactive compositions of what is present. I have done a study, you can, with a student, and we were looking at garlic as a food additive. Now, garlic is an example of an indigenous vegetable, in certain regions. And this vegetable can be boiled, it can be steamed, it can be eaten raw. And particularly in each of those respective areas, there's a different composition of the bioactive compounds that we are taking. If you take it raw, some people have reacted to it because of the sulfur that it contains. And of course, when you look at this, then we also go down to the medicinal value of indigenous vegetables depending on the processing method. So we have positive measures. For example, some processing methods like blanching, like boiling, like baking and roasting have been reported to increase phytochemicals and the vitamins that we consume, can come in as a result of our processing method. So this increases. On the other hand, some of these have actually been found to decrease the amount of phytochemicals that are consumed. For example, when you look at the temperature impact on chemicals, within the plants. So what am I saying is that we can actually reduce the qualitative and nutritional loss of bioactive compounds in medicines or indigenous plants by the method of cooking. The Jewish mouth have had nutritional value by the way we cook. To completion. We are actually defining what of the nutritional value. We have seen how we can use our plants in terms of phytochemicals. So moderate, we need the conditions for cooking, and of course, use water majorly for our cooking. And so I know I have, used very few chemical terms because of the nature of my presentation. Some of those areas which I could have indicated using some chemistry, I was unable, but we can actually say this in summary, that African indigenous vegetables offer a blend of nutritional benefits, medicinal value, and because they are very easily to adapt in our local conditions, we need to impress them. Particularly, we reflect on the positive shift that our societies have had in terms of their perceptions towards the indigenous vegetables. And in this case, how we can use it to promote health and the well-being. And lastly, that these vegetables are anticipated to contribute significantly to the global initiative of WHO in increasing the consumption of vegetables in African countries, and thereby working on the UN goals, like I mentioned, zero hunger, good health, and well-being. Thank you very much. I hope after that, we'll embrace the African indigenous vegetables. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wangila, for that very, very informative presentation. Dr. Wangila was speaking about the medicinal value of traditional African indigenous vegetables. At this point, I want to kindly request, if your mic is on, kindly mute as we move on. Kindly mute. Sabera, I can see you're not muted. Kindly mute, just in case we get any background noise from you. Thank you. The next presentation will be on situating gender in the dialogue on African indigenous vegetables. I will be your speaker for this very short moment. So my topic is on the gender angle in terms of where does gender and the topic of indigenous vegetables meet? Where do they meet? So we know that indigenous vegetables play a vital role in promoting food security, as we have heard, nutrition, and also cultural heritage in many societies worldwide. The aspect of nutrition was very well handled by Agnes, food security by Tigis. And now when we talk about culture, it's really where we'll see gender really coming in to play. When it comes to the cultivation, consumption, and conservation of these vegetables, that is deeply intertwined with gender dynamics. The intersection of gender and indigenous vegetables generally highlights the implications for agricultural practices, the livelihoods, nutrition, and empowerment. The role of gender in consumption and cultivation of indigenous vegetables varies on various, depending on various reasons, one of which is cultural reasons. We see that gender roles assigned to women, such as planning for meals in the homestead, household nutrition, preparation and sourcing for vegetables. Actually, in the rural settings as we know them today, and even in the past, indigenous vegetables are still sourced in the wild. Like where we are here at the Rift Valley National Polytechnic, on our farm, whenever we have wheat planted, we see women from the neighboring community sourcing for terere, I don't know, amaranth in the field, in the wheat fields. So this is still happening up to date. And this is really a role that has been assigned to women. The aspect of sourcing for what will be eaten on the dinner table is really their job. Socioeconomic reasons, when we talk about aspects such as land ownership, decisions on investments, allocation of money to projects, all that is also a determinant in the aspects of indigenous vegetables. Remember that women, there are disparities in access to land. And in many communities, women are not even allowed to own land. So even when it comes to cultivation and even access to credit, agricultural inputs, all that can impact the woman's ability to engage in vegetable cultivation, therefore limiting their autonomy and decision-making power. As we have seen, we have research findings that have indeed shown that access to land is a constraint, especially for women in male-headed households. We also have research showing that farm inputs, resources such as seeds, fertilizers, chemicals, and land were difficult to access by female farmers. This was reported by Alao et al. 2019, a study done in Nigeria. The same study also found that 9.5% of males in that study and 23.7% of females had no formal education. So those who are farming, doing the farming of indigenous vegetables, you can imagine, you can see the margin for women, the uneducated women, being quite many in terms of not having any formal education. Again, in sub-Saharan Africa, males are frequently seen as producers of cash crops and marketable vegetables, while female farmers are perceived as producers of food crops for home consumption. Again, that is from research. In many societies, women will often play a very significant role in both the cultivation and consumption of indigenous vegetables. But typically, they are responsible for household food production and preparation. The extent of women's involvement really differs widely across regions and communities. So what we're saying here is that this will be different from community to community. But as we have seen, women are largely charged with the duty of looking for these vegetables, sourcing for them, and also preparing them on the dinner table. Women also act as the primary cultivators. They often play a central role in the cultivation of indigenous vegetables because they possess traditional knowledge and expertise that has been passed down through generations. Again, when it comes to labor division, gender norms and roles may dictate that the division of labor in vegetable cultivation. We see that in most cases, women will be tasked with roles such as seed selection, planting, and even harvesting, while the men will handle the certain aspects of cultivation such as plowing. In other contexts, the division of labor may be less rigid. Say, for example, when you're talking about even coffee farming or other types of crops, women will generally be given the lesser and then the men will take the more. So women will mainly be engaged in harvesting and maybe even planting. But when it comes to the control of even the money that comes from that will mainly be done by the men, particularly in male-headed households. When it comes to traditional knowledge, women hold valuable traditional knowledge of indigenous vegetables, including their medicinal properties, culinary uses, and seed-saving techniques. And I think we'll be listening from somebody who will tell us about the seed-saving techniques as some of the practices of what is being done today. Dennis will also probably talk about the culinary uses when we are talking about promotion of African cuisine. However, women are also, because of the patriarchal structures, women may be marginalized. Their voices may be marginalized in agricultural research and extension services. I know we have agricultural experts here. They can tell us that. There will be hindrance on innovation and even sustainable practices. Indeed, Fisher et al. Says that women in male-headed households had the least contact with extension officers and even access to training. When it comes to the market, how market participation and livelihoods, women will often face barriers to accessing markets and earning income from vegetable production due to the gendered norms that restrict them from mobility and even bargaining power. If you think of a woman having this business and she wants to travel all the way, probably to do marketing if you're in Kenya, in Garissa is a far-flung area, in Mombasa, and maybe Fides can tell us this. Are there any barriers you're facing in accessing markets? Because of the gendered norms, you have a family to take care of. You may not be able to travel far. So because of that, your access to the market is also limited. But that would probably not be the case if this was a man running the business. Then economic empowerment, when it comes to promoting gender equality in market participation, we see that it's possible to enhance women's economic empowerment and opportunities for entrepreneurship by breaking the gender barriers. Indigenous vegetables are indeed very rich in essential nutrients, as we had before from the previous presenter, and contribute to dietary diversity. And yet, gender norms may influence who even has access to these vegetables within households. This will generally affect the male gender. When it comes to gender disparities, addressing gender disparities in access to and consumption of indigenous vegetables is very crucial for improving nutrition and health outcomes, particularly for vulnerable groups. In this case, we are talking about women, children, the elderly, and also the immunocompromised. So it is important to recognize and value women's contribution to vegetable cultivation, to enhance empowerment and advocacy within agricultural systems. We also advocate for the efforts to promote gender equality, such as providing women with access to resources, education, and decision-making opportunities, which are essential for fostering sustainable food systems and social justice. In conclusion, we want to say that understanding and addressing that the gender dynamics of indigenous vegetable production is quite essential because it will help us promote sustainable agriculture. It will also enhance nutrition and health outcomes, and also advance gender equality and women's empowerment. We conclude also by saying that by situating gender in the context of indigenous vegetables, we can harness their full potential for the well-being of communities and the planet. So thank you very much, colleagues. I want to end my presentation there. Thank you. I go back now to the role of moderation. Let me see who the next presenter is. Our next presenter will be Dennis Odero. Dennis, are you here?
Yes.
Yeah, Dennis Odero from Egerton University will be talking about promoting African cuisine. So Dennis, the floor is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, colleagues. My name is Dennis Odero from Egerton University. I support the network as Chief of Staff, that's Climate Smart Agriculture Network Global. And I'm here briefly to talk about the the strategies to promote African cuisine. Tiggy said mentioned some of them, and as I said, and as previous the presenters have spoken, you understand that African indigenous crops, vegetable, are really useful and very much usable, especially in the wake of the climate change, because of recently in our rural setup, farmers have been growing maize mostly and other crops, and they had gone to not farming this because they really believe that this one should just grow on their should just grow on their own, which is not the case. So one of the strategies that I would really love to talk about briefly is to support these local farmers and also be able to market this. Once we can support them, how do you support them? By getting them the right seed, and how can we do this? I am from Egerton University. This is a university that is mostly doing agricultural-based courses, and most of the students here are doing agricultural-based courses. So we should be adding value to the society by coming up with the different skills that are very much grown in that can be grown in different areas, and be able to adopt to those areas. So by doing this, we'll be able to encourage more farmers to come and be able to do this African vegetable farming, because I understand there are some vegetables that will not grow in different areas, not only in Kenya, but different parts of Africa. So this one is very useful for me because we must start where when we talk about the real value chain. So we start with the farmers, because without the farmers, then we can't be talking about African vegetables. So we should have the right seeds for them. And number two, we should also help them to market this final product, because I understand when you go to these high-end hotels, you'll find that African cuisine is very, very much expensive. But yet, when you buy them in our local markets, we normally sell them at very cheap cost, 20 shillings, Kenyan shillings, 30 or 50. But once you go to these hotels, you buy them at more than 500 or even 1,000. So we have to link these farmers to be able to sell this, to also to add value to what they are doing in their farms. Number two, also collaboration with food influencers. What do I like about influencers? These are different value chain players that play along the value chains. So when I talk about this, the youth are here and they really do a lot of blogging. You see it used on TikTok and everywhere. So they can really promote this by just showing this on their various platforms. That's the TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. So they can help this by being able to show what their farmers are doing in their villages, and people from different backgrounds will be able to see, because just one youth can be able to sell the entire village. If they can get even 10 farmers that are doing this, they can be able to showcase this from the different online platform, and this one can really help to be able to promote this consumption, and also and also be able to the marketing of this product. Another one, I've talked about online marketing, and also this is being online platform and apps. This is very, because at the end of the day, these farmers cannot access mobile apps. Some of them cannot access, not all of them, but youths are able to develop these apps and be able linking these farmers to different, like I've said, hotels that are doing this, because some of the hotels cannot get these African vegetables easily. But when we have, for example, a mobile app that can link the farmers the different hotel, then it naturally becomes easy for the farmers to be able to produce enough and be able to also be sure of the market. So youths that are here, not only the youths and even the senior members who are here, this one can also be able to promote the consumption of the African the African vegetable. Another thing that are really of very important to me is educational initiative. Like I've said, you normally see our children in primary school, the now new Kenyan learning system, the CBC. I'm really interested in what they're doing, because you find these kids doing what we in the current universities and even different colleges are not doing. These children can be able to cook this African. They are normally taught how to cook. They are normally taught how to cook these African vegetables, and when a child does that, you really admire the way they're taught they're doing. So if we can build this culture, not only to the primary schools, even the higher learning institutions also, this one will be able to promote the consumption and also be able to encourage our farmers all to increase their level of production. Because by doing that, then everyone can be able to see and be able to consume. Another strategy that can be used, I've talked about hotels. Different hotels have different mechanisms of maybe getting these African vegetables. Hotels can be used also as marketing agencies for African vegetables by coming and signing MOU with the local farmers and being able to produce different standards of their own standards. Maybe also giving knowledge back to the farmers, the ones the type of vegetables that they really need to be grown for maybe different customers. So this one the hotels can really play a key role here and be able to help farmers to grow the vegetable that they really desire. Talked about social media campaigns. That is very key. Cooking classes and workshops. Nowadays, in different TV stations, you see people being taught how to cook. If this one can also be promoted, that we can be able to share how we can be able to prepare the African vegetable to everyone, and then it becomes easy for people to feel that this is something that can be done. Everyone can cook it, and it has so many beneficial, just like the previous speakers had said, and by doing that, this can be done not only on TV, can be done on social media. We can have this in local setups, even in the villages. It does not need to be done on TV. So this one also needs that all the value chain players, from the from the farmers to the end users, can play a key role in promoting this. I've talked the last two things that I would really like to talk about is also the events and different festivals that can be organized maybe annually, weekly, even over the weekend, that we just say this is a weekend for promoting African vegetables, and in a different institutions, the universities, our schools, and so this one can change our culture, because talking about the currently generation, Gen Z, they really feel that eating African food is not being classy. So we have to change this to them, and so they understand that African food is classy, is healthy, is all that the world needs now, because of the so many things that have changed currently. So by employing combination of these strategies, we can effectively promote African cuisine, celebrate the cultural significance, and encourage broader appreciation for diverse flavors for diverse flavors in the continent that has to offer. Thank you so much.
Dennis, I think you've muted yourself. Dennis, you're muted.
Yes. Sorry. I've said I've finished my presentation. Maybe I will take questions later.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dennis, for your wonderful presentation. So we move on to the next presenter. Our next presenter is Jane Rose Lusweti from the Rift Valley National Polytechnic. She'll be speaking on knowledge, practices, and attitudes. Jane Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Irene, for organizing this informative session. I've really learned a lot from the previous presenters, and by the end of it all, I know I would have learned more. I'm Jane Rose Lusweti from the Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology under the Health and Applied Department.
Enda hapo chini yake uone vile unaona hizo form hivyo zinakuwa tu chini.
Kennedy Okuku, please mute yourself. And anybody else that has not muted, kindly mute.
Okay, a nutritionist by profession from the Health and Applied Sciences Department at the Rift Valley Institute. And then I'm also representing the WASA group from the GCSAYN. I'll be discussing on knowledge, attitude, and practices when it comes to indigenous vegetables in Africa. Now, let's start with knowledge. Knowledge encompasses understanding of the botanical characteristics of these indigenous vegetables, which Dr. Fanny Swangila has gone through. We also have the nutritional value and culinary uses, apart from the cultivation methods, which I hope the upcoming presenters will talk more about that. Now, knowledge can be influenced by our level of education, our exposure to agricultural extension services, and also cultural practices. In Kenya, most of us are acquainted with the diverse indigenous vegetables in our markets. For example, we have the amaranth, which by local name we call terere. We have cowpea, which we call kunde. African nightshade, we call it managu. Spider plant, we call it saga or saget. And also the pumpkin leaves, which we call seveve. And we have the jute mellow, which is fondly referred to as mrenda or mrere. Now, when it comes to knowledge in Kenya, apparently the rural population has more knowledge when it comes to indigenous vegetables as compared to the urban population. Factors that could attribute to these differences could be that the rural population maybe have a closer proximity to the farms, and also the traditional ways of agriculture. Also, another factor that could attribute to this difference could be the cultural ties and the positive attitude that the rural population could be having towards these indigenous vegetables as compared to the urban dwellers. But currently, we're having a slow shift in health consciousness among Kenyans, where we're seeing the urban population at least trying to embrace the indigenous vegetables. For example, just as Dennis has spoken, when you go to our hotels nowadays in our menus, you cannot miss the word kienyeji. Kienyeji in Kenya simply refers to indigenous. So you will find on our Kenyan menus, we have kienyeji vegetables. We also have outlets for the frozen, pre-boiled, mixed kienyeji vegetables. We also have outlets for dehydrated kienyeji vegetables. These vegetables are dried either using the sun or using machines, and then they are presented to the Kenyan markets. Again, we're seeing shift in knowledge among the urban population because we can see we have cultural festivals. food fairs, and events where different chefs or different communities get to showcase their traditional recipes and also cooking demonstration associated with kienyeji vegetables. When it comes to attitude, attitude reflects an individual's perceptions, beliefs, and feelings towards indigenous vegetables. So if someone has positive attitude towards these vegetables, it will promote the cultivation, consumption, and even commercialization of these indigenous vegetables, whereas the negative attitudes will hinder these adoptions. When we look at some of the factors that can influence attitudes, we have cultural preferences, social norms, tastes and preferences, and exposure to marketing and educational campaign. Now, the Kenyan urban population is used to what we call the exotic vegetables. The term exotic vegetable means vegetables such as spinach, cabbages, kales, and broccolis. Some of these dwellers might have a negative attitude towards traditional vegetables, and this could be linked to factors like taste. When children grow up on the exotic vegetables, that is the cabbage, the spinach, and then they go maybe for Christmas holidays. In Kenya, we go to Shago over the holidays. When they go to Shago and find grandma has prepared these traditional vegetables, most of them are not acquainted to that, and they might not be really willing to take those vegetables. Now, this could be attributed to the taste. Maybe most of them claim that traditional vegetables are bitter, and therefore they prefer the cabbages or the broccolis. Again, sometimes the urban population may not have a positive attitude towards consumption of indigenous vegetables because some of them might have the perception of status and modernity in that they associate these indigenous vegetables with low class or rural status. But I think when we do nutrition education and creating awareness, we can induce change where we can at least address such attitudes if we create awareness about the nutritional and even the medicinal value of these vegetables. Another factor that might cause the urban dwellers to have a negative attitude towards these indigenous vegetables could be the cost. I'm glad we have Nara here with us. Maybe she can highlight to us how much these vegetables go to, because most urban dwellers usually prefer vegetables like kales because you get value for the money that you spend on kales when you compare to the traditional vegetables when you go to the urban markets, because traditional vegetables tend to be more expensive than the exotic ones in the urban setups. Now, however, there is a slow shift amongst these dwellers because of dialogues like this and being health conscious. Nowadays, we have even the organic farms, the rooftop gardens, we have delivery of these vegetables. So there's a slow shift in attitude towards the use of these vegetables. Finally, when it comes to practices, I looked at cultivation and farming practices, and then I also looked at the cooking methods, and I also looked at the market dynamics. When it comes to cultivation and farming practices, seed generation and preservation are done through traditional seed banks, and we also have commercial seed stores. When we talk about traditional seed banks, here we have seeds being stored in containers made from earthware, bamboo tubes, and also cloths. This practice usually prevents the seeds from being attacked by pests and other threats like moisture. Then we also have other traditional storage techniques such as burying, where the seeds are buried underground, and some communities also hang them in well-ventilated structures so as to maintain seed viability over time. Apart from these traditional methods, we have modern methods where we have seed shops in Kenya, like the Kenya Seed, the agrovets, where you can get a variety of these indigenous vegetables. However, in these modern shops, you get the maybe genetically modified or improved versions of this vegetables. You mostly don't get the indigenous, the original form of this seed. Now, despite these indigenous vegetables being an integral part of agricultural systems in Africa, the government of most of our countries have not given them priority in crop development. Now, when it comes to traditional cooking methods, we have indigenous vegetables being prepared using traditional methods. Some are boiled, some are steamed, stir-fried, stewed, or some we have what we call, mostly from the western part of Kenya, what we call munyu or musherha, which is usually made from ash. This ash is made from burning the dried pods of beans or dried maize cobs, and then it is filtered, and that liquid is used to tenderize these indigenous vegetables. Now, as people in the health sector or nutritionists, there's an argument between the properties of this munyu, whether it's beneficial or not. For it helps in terms of taste and tenderizing these vegetables, but at the same time, it might affect the bioavailability of the phytochemicals and nutrients in vegetables. So this is a discussion on the table. Maybe we can look at the advantages and disadvantages of using this traditional preservative, which is adopted in some communities here in Kenya. Now, when it comes to market dynamics, practices here in Kenya and most African countries, these vegetables can be accessed from the road sellers. Most of the time, these road sellers usually sell these vegetables in the evenings. When you go to Kenyan markets in the evening, you might find a variety of sellers dealing with these vegetables. Then we can also buy directly from the farmers in our regions, and sometimes most of our supermarkets and delivery services have advanced where delivery is a phone call away, so you can make a call and then those vegetables will be delivered to you. As I conclude, I have 3 major points. First of all, I recommend that we have more research on knowledge, attitude, and practices regarding indigenous vegetables in Africa, because if we can address behavioral changes about knowledge, attitude, and practices, then we will be able to promote sustainability of these indigenous vegetables through cultivation, conservation, and also their utilization. Secondly, initiatives should aim at improving awareness, that is, enhancing the production techniques, diversifying our diets, strengthening the value chains, and supporting the smallholder farmers in engaging in indigenous vegetable farming. Lastly, it will be appropriate for us to nurture partnerships between researchers, government agencies, non-governmental organizations, and also the local communities, so as to address the complex challenges that are associated with consumption of indigenous vegetables. I believe when we do this in the long run, we will be able to address the issue of food security in Africa, which is a major challenge to us, especially in the current context of climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Jane Rose, for your very informative dialogue or presentation. I wish to welcome the next 2 presenters, and I want to hope that they are now able to share screen. The rest of us are not able to do that. Maybe Dr. Kere, as you come in, see whether you are able to share your screen if you wanted to share. I think that has been activated now. So Dr. Kere from the University of Kabianga will be speaking on value addition. Welcome, Dr. Dr. Kere?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Are you able to see my presentation?
Not yet, Doc.
Okay. Just hold on briefly.
Daktari, are you?
Pardon?
Yes, can you see? Are you able to share your screen?
I hope so.
Oh yeah, sure. We can see you now. We can
Okay,
see
thank you very much. My name is Dr. George Kere, School of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, University of Kabianga. The title of my presentation is Value Addition, but I've added of indigenous vegetables. That's the outline of my presentation. Yes, so by way of introduction, value addition in this context is the changing of a produce to a more valuable product from the original form or the original product. Value addition is key in
Slides are
achievement
not moving.
of, pardon?
Slides are not moving. I don't know whether it's my laptop or it's among all of us.
Yeah, they're not moving. I could see that too.
Wondering why it's not.
Maybe you can move manually. You can move them manually.
But I'm moving manually, but I'm not moving the audience. All right. So maybe we'll do the listening.
It's okay. You can go ahead. No problem.
All right. So I say that value addition, particularly of indigenous vegetables, is one way of achieving the SDG goals number 2 and number 3 of 2030. That is zero hunger, good health, and well-being. How does validation help in this? Validation will ensure access to the nutritious food products at all times. We realize that currently majority are moving to the urban areas for various opportunities, and this one leaves the rural areas without critical labor for the production of the vegetables. There's also a strong shift to non-agricultural income generating activities at the expense of vegetable production. We also have climate change, which is associated with drought and floods. When this happens, the production of vegetables is in danger. So validation becomes handy by addressing those challenges. One, the validation of vegetables, these vegetables, indigenous one of their major undoing is short shelf life. So to reduce the post-harvest losses, when they are value added, the shelf life is extended. Then it also ensures year-round production, year-round supply of the vegetable to the consumers. To the traders, the farmers, and all actors in the value chain, it's also a way of ensuring regular income to traders and actually at very higher prices. It also increases the consumption appeal to the consumers and therefore increasing the intake. Those who visit the groceries, you realize that stinging nettle or the vaya in the supermarket, people really buy it at very high prices, but if it is presented in the fresh form, the demand is a bit low. It's also a way of developing the rural areas through offering employment, the cottage, and the food industry. So briefly, we'll discuss on the status of validation of indigenous vegetables in Kenya. The status of validation of indigenous vegetables, I can say, has remained at its infant form for a long time. We have various players who are doing the validation, starting from sorting, washing, packaging, processing, pre-cutting, and also grading. But I must say that these ones, if you compare with the exotic vegetables, the technologies employed still are not very far from the traditional methods of drying and boiling. The drying is majorly done under the sun, whereas various actors have now developed solar dryers where the loss of nutrients, and other quality attributes is reduced. Others also do boiling, but we have realized that most of the phytochemicals or most of the food elements in these vegetables, some are lost up to 80% through boiling. So we need to come up with the right boiling temperature for given food so that we get maximum profit. Then in validation of these indigenous vegetables, most of it is done manually. So this manual production is not efficient and again discourages new players in the validation. So in short, what can we do to improve the scale of validation in Kenya? I'm happy we have got people who are not just talking, but are active implementers of validation in Kenya. And note that validation is not limited to processing. However, in our supermarket chains, we have got various forms of value-added indigenous vegetables. You'll find the pumpkin seed powders. You'll get the stinging nettle powders and others. So in value addition, what we emphasize is how we can prolong the life, reduce nutrient loss, increase consumption of the vegetables in a more efficient manner. So despite those challenges in value addition of indigenous vegetables, there is a huge potential. As one presenter had correctly put it, more people are getting aware of the health benefits of the indigenous vegetables. We have various professionals, the food scientists, the agro-engineers, the chemists, which have the ability of coming up with innovation and technologies with regard to validation of indigenous vegetables. The Kenya markets are already developed. We have retailers, wholesalers. So these ones can be assured of regular supply of the value-added products to the consumers any time of the year. Next, value addition is a sure route towards provision or supply of nutritious vegetables within this era of climate change. It is also a way of improving dietary diversity. Here, I challenge you that the indigenous vegetables have been used in cuisines, but there's a new thinking that we can also see how we can also include them in our beverages, particularly the tea. How can we introduce them in the tea or popular beverages? So the dialogue has just started. So where do we go from here? We need to strengthen the indigenous vegetable value chain, where all actors play their role so that we make a mark of indigenous vegetables in Africa and also in the global scene. For us to do this, there's need to develop standards for these vegetables. The monchou, the carrots, the standards are already there and documented. What about our indigenous vegetables? We need to have the standard for these value-added products. So thank you. That marks the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Wow, Dr. Kere, indeed the dialogue has just begun, and I'm glad you bring in the new aspect of the teas. And I'm happy because the next presenter, Nancy, is from the county government of Nakuru, and this dialogue cannot be complete, one, without the county government, because they're the ones that develop policies. And also we have Nara Vegetables here, and we have John Mweti, who are already practicing, and therefore would be very, without them, this dialogue is not complete. So thank you very much, Daktari. And I want to now welcome our next presenter, who is Nancy from the county government of Nakuru. Nancy Njogu will be speaking on policies, strategies, and progress. And she is our last presenter. But after that, we shall have a minute or two for Fides from Nara Vegetables and Mweti to tell us what they're doing with the drying of vegetables, because they're actually doing it, and what kind of technologies they're using. But they'll tell us that in about 2 minutes. So thank you very much. Welcome, Nancy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know whether I'll be able to share my screen. Eileen?
Yeah, you can try. Try and share your screen. It's active now.
Okay. Is it visible to everyone? Is it visible? Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here to present on strategies in promoting African indigenous vegetables in the county, or rather what we are doing, and it is not moving. It's not moving. Irene?
Are you pressed? Where, what, let me see. Dennis, Dennis, are you there?
Nancy, you can remove presentation mode so that because when you remove the presentation mode, we can be able to see when you move to the next slide.
Oh. Yeah, we can see now.
Oh, no, it is visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, what the other presenters have done, it's like I'm already going through what we have already discussed. But for the county, we really recognize indigenous local vegetables for their nutrition, dense property, and they're important in nutrition and food security in Nakuru County. And like the other presenters have said, we have black nightshade, amaranthus, cowpeas, that is kundas, spider plants. And we also appreciate that the local vegetables are well adapted to the local climate, and it's the way to go as far as the climate change issues are concerned. And they are readily available at the household level. And as our presenters have said, they are recognized for their medicinal purposes. But it is good to note that despite Nakuru County being an agricultural potential county, we have very high level of malnutrition in the county. And the local indigenous vegetables have been targeted by the county to address the malnutrition. And it is sad to note that in Nakuru County, stunting for the children is 18.5%, against the national average, which is 18%. Wasting of the children is 5%, against 3% in the country. Underweight for the children is 10%, where the national average is 9%. And micronutrient deficiency is an issue, which is related to death-related and non-communicable diseases. And we have realized that this one is the challenges because of inadequate access to healthy and diversified diet by many households, despite Nakuru being a very highly agricultural county. So how the county is addressing this issue, we are working closely with the Ministry of Health and the county integrated development plan is addressing this by providing or supporting our farmers with planting materials. That is, as far as the African leaf vegetables are concerned. We are also promoting development kitchen gardens at household level and even in schools in order to enlighten the community. We are doing a lot of capacity building on food utilization and value addition. And we are developing, the county is developing nutrition policy, which we are calling multi-sectoral nutritional policy. As the previous presenters have said, this is now going to be multi-sectoral. It can't be handled by one institution. The stakeholders need to come about and address those issues which have been highlighted. So this is Nakuru County statistics, and African nightshade, that is the Managu, has the highest acreage, that is 193, and we are able to produce around 13 tons per year. And we go down up to leaf amaranth, spider plant, cowpea, vine spinach, and dilemma, and then we have the kaholola. So this is an increase. We are from the promotion activities that we have been doing, and we hope that as we bring in more stakeholders, we'll be able to do more. So one of our stakeholder who has come up is the National Museum of Kenya, who is very keen on preserving the natural heritage, and in this case, they are concerned about preserving the indigenous food. And they have zeroed on AIVs, and they have concentrated on 3 sub-counties: Moro, Njoro, Subukia, Bahati, Kulesoi South, and Kulesoi North. And they have been able to provide our farmers with seeds for AIVs. In fact, they have now worked with 103 groups, farmers groups. They have trained the farmers, and they have also provided them with AIV seeds. That is spider plants, amaranthus, and black nightshade. They have been able to train most of our farmers in those sub-counties and even staff. So this is a farmer in Kulesoi North who benefited from the program, and also another farmer who is doing their own nursery at the household level for availability and sustainability. And I have a farmers group in Kulesoi who are issued with the seeds. They did it together, and now they are distributing amongst themselves. And there's more activities in Kulesoi on the same. And some farmers have been able to do seeds at their local level. And as it is coming out from the other presenters, we have said that the seed system is very, very weak for the local vegetables. Because farmers are only relying on what they produce from their farm, they do a lot of recycling. So those who are able to see the screen here can see a farmer who is holding seeds for spider plant and amaranthus. And from our breeding knowledge, we know that after recycling for so long, the genetic vigor normally goes down. And even the disease and the pests susceptibility. Then we have another project which is called 1 Million Kitchen Garden, which are targeted to empower 1 million farmers, each with a kitchen garden. That is from the national government. And we are able to support farmers with a lot of vegetable seeds. That is kale, spinach, black nightshade, amaranthus, cowpea, coriander. And those farmers groups are still very active in the field. The project also provided farmers with soil and dryers for value addition, and they also provided with multi-story shade nets. In this case, we also focus on 4K clubs and young farmers so that we can be able to move along with our schools. Then we have another upcoming project, which we are calling Cascade, which is also very ambitious, and they are targeting around 400 groups in the county to promote the AIVs. So we can, at least we can see that there is some progress. And as we continue bringing in more stakeholders and addressing this issue, we hope that everything will be okay. They are targeting black nutshade, amaranthus, binder plant, cowpea leaves. And there will be trials and demonstrations to be set up at group level. But let me point out that even after giving farmers these seeds, most of the farmers don't just harvest and nothing goes on. That is why we are saying that if we could have the seed system at the farm level, it would be more sustainable. Most farmers even don't know how to do the seed production and even the storage, like our presenters have said, and even managing those seeds. So value additions, what our farmers are doing is drying their vegetables using solar and dryers in the open or under the shade. And we have also introduced drying using the solar and dryers. And in some cases, it's after drying, the dried leaves are being crushed to produce powder, which is added to the food or drink later. And these are some of the photos showing the value addition trainings by our staff in Gilgil. And this is an example of stinging nettle, processing of value addition, where they have even come up with the powder, which is very expensive in the supermarket.
Sabera, kindly mute. Sabera, kindly mute. Sabera, please mute.
So these are farmers' trainings on value addition. And the challenges which we have identified as a county is the climate change. Even after giving these farmers the seeds, you realize that if the drought comes in, it clears everything after a crop failure, and the farmers are not able to get anything from the field. And then the other major problem is the seasonality of the leaf vegetables because of our reliance on rain-fed production. We have so much during the rain season, but during the dry season, everything clears from the fields. We have poor agronomy as one of the problems which we are addressing, and low production. Disorganized marketing. Farmers are getting very low for their produce. If we could get the policy could address the marketing, our farmers would reap very good prices. And of course, low prices and just what we are repeating, lack of a good seed system. So the opportunities which we identify for Nakuru and Nakuru County is that we appreciate that Nakuru County is endowed with very good conducive climate for AIV productions. We appreciate that our soils and altitude is favorable for vegetable production. And we appreciate that there is readily available labor to work on the farms. Even our farmers are very active, they are willing to work. And then AIVs are well adapted to the local climate. That is a very good opportunity. And the demand for AIVs is increasing, meaning that even the demand is also increasing. So that is what we have for the county. We are looking forward for more collaborations from more stakeholders to bring in their inputs so that we can promote indigenous vegetable production. And we are it's very sad that in Nakuru, the malnutrition level for Nakuru is very, very high. No one would expect this. So welcome all to collaborate with the county in this undertaking. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very
much.
I'm done, yeah. Oh, thank you very much, Nancy, for that very informative presentation. And I'm actually indeed one of the people that are surprised that we have a high rate of malnutrition within Nakuru County. Probably we will be having further discussions on the same and seeing how else we can partner as an institution and even with the partners on this forum, because this forum has brought in partners from not only from Kenya, but also from other parts of Africa. but I want to believe the Kenyan counterparts, the Kenyan partners who are here, Egerton University, University of Kabianga, Njoro Precious Schools, and Arvist, will play a role in ensuring that we partner with you and ensuring that we further this dialogue into action. So next we have an open forum that will only last not very long. We'll probably allow for 10 minutes of the open forum. You can make a comment, you can ask your question as we usher in Professor Oladele to give the closing remarks. But as we begin, I would like to welcome Fides of Nara Vegetables. You have a minute or so to just tell us about your experience. Also tell us what you're doing. Fides is in Nakuru County, and also John Mweti. You could please tell us in brief what you're doing so that the members here can understand that this is not just a dialogue, it is actually practical. You know, sometimes in forums such as this, you might have a lot of discussions, but no one is doing the practical aspect. So I want to say here that these two are people that are already doing it in practice. So welcome, Fides, you could start.
Thank you, Irene. For the second time, my name is Fides, the founder of Nara Vegetables. And also in this forum, I have our director, Professor Mugera Gitare, is in the meeting. I'll take you through what we are doing at Nara Vegetables. Basically, we are doing value addition, but we start from growing. We grow indigenous vegetables, dry them, prepare them, dry them, and pack them. These indigenous vegetables, for now, we have 5 of them. That is the African nightshades, spider plants, cowpea leaves, amaranthus, and jute mallow. In this, we've also added some seasonings, which we mix spring onions and coriander seeds. That is one. And the other one, we have chili, spring onions, and parsley. Someone talked about teas, and we are looking at lemongrass. All these vegetables are the ones that we grow. Why do we insist on growing? Because we want to monitor them from growth. We want to be able to know how they're grown and manage them ourselves. But this year we've gone a step further. We have engaged a few farmers who are willing to walk with us this journey. We are training them, and we are taking them through the proper growing of the indigenous vegetables. These farmers are in Elbagon, and we are in that process, and they are very, very interested and committed farmers. We are looking at widening the gap, maybe as we go on, but at the moment we are dealing with a few. The challenges we've encountered with Nara Vegetables, most communities believe that a certain vegetable is meant to be eaten by a certain community. So when we get to the market, we take our time to take them through all these vegetables as a whole package. And the younger generation, they think that the indigenous vegetables are meant for the elderly. So we have that challenge, but it's being overcome day by day. They are accepting them and they are appreciating them. The other challenge is the cost of production, but we are trying to minimize all labor production and the processing itself to give a more healthy and nutritious pack of each. We had a very big challenge of availability of properly grown vegetables. That is why we went into growing our own. But we want other people to benefit from these value addition. So we are engaging those farmers to be able to grow, and we are taking them through so that they're able to grow them properly. So that we get the nutrition that we want from these vegetables. Yeah, I think that is all. And we appreciate this meeting. We've learned a lot, and we wish to be part of it and in the following meetings. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Fides. And I want to say, because I'm your customer, I want to actually say that your vegetables are really good. I don't know what you do, but how you do them. You have enabled me to eat managu when I couldn't reach the market. I can eat terere without knowing, without going to the market. And I mean, it's a really good thing for me. It works very well for me, and I hope it works well for many other many other consumers. And I'm glad you bring out the issue of cost of production, because Mweti, who is going to speak after, who is speaking after you, is going to tell us something on how to save on energy, because he's already doing it on the ground. Mweti? Mr. Mweti, are you there? Mr. Mweti? I don't know if he's still in the meeting. Mr. Mweti? John? Anyway, if he's not here, I could probably just highlight, because I've engaged with him severally on what they're doing at a place called Eburu. In Eburu, there is geothermal energy. So, and it's quite on the surface. Eburu is a place near Gilgil. And what they're doing is they're actually using geothermal heat to dry vegetables, and therefore saving a lot on energy. My assumption is that, I don't know what kind of method you're using to dry, but my assumption is that whatever method you're using could probably be using some energy. At Eburu, they also use hot water to blanch the vegetables. Again, the hot water comes from underground. So they are saving a lot in terms of energy, and are able to really dry a lot of vegetables using that geothermal heat. Eburu is also a place that is very, very fertile, and therefore a lot of vegetables grow there. You probably would want to meet up with Mr. Mweti and have this discussion. It's maybe you could also partner with farmers in that region to take advantage of that heat, and also take advantage of the fertile grounds there for growth of vegetables. I don't want to say more. Maybe from going forward, you can be able to have a discussion with him and see how you can benefit from one another. Now,
Okay, Irene, I think maybe I can say in brief how we are drying them.
Yeah.
Our process is from the picking. They are picked, selected. Then we go to washing.
Mm-hmm.
The vegetables are then blanched. Mm-hmm. They are both blanched differently. They are not blanched the same. So we don't mix the vegetables. Each is dried differently. Then when you blanch them, we spread them out in trays for the water to evaporate. And then after some time, we take them into the solar dryer. As we are sun drying, we take them in the solar dryer to dry slowly and retain the nutrients. Yes.
Wow, thank you for that. Maybe you could just have a discussion with him later and see whether there is any information you could exchange.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you too. So, is there any member who would like to ask or say something before we go to the closing remarks?
Yes. Thank you, Irene.
Yeah.
This is Kennedy Okuku. And first, congratulations for this enlightening session. Though it was not publicized a lot, I came to realize to see the link later, which means if at all it was publicized a lot, many people could have joined. And by many people joining, meaning that information could go further and changing many people's living. Now, being that I come from, I work at in one of these universities, and there's one of the competencies that CBC is trying to incorporate, called system thinking. And then, being that I want to bring something of system thinking, and I want to take it from Dr. Kere, who mentioned something to do with climate change affecting daily production or cultivation of these indigenous crops. And then Nancy also mentioned that in Nakuru, being that we've got readily available labor, and then there's a conducive environment for growing these particular vegetables. And then she went further and mentioned that when the drought comes, it clears everything. Now, if at all we are giving farmers seeds, and then being that climate change, it's very unpredictable. So what are some of the, if I would say, adaptation measures that you're trying to put in place to ensure that even if the drought comes, farmers won't be affected, in that you incorporate, let's say, engineers. So you give them seeds, but now they can also get technical know-how from, let's say, engineers to help them in supplementary irrigation. So that's just a food for thought, because I'm seeing Egerton is involved, University of Kabianga is involved, Nakuru County involved, which is very good. But let's also think of incorporating engineers so that when you give the farmers seeds, you are sure they'll grow, harvesting, and then the harvested crops will serve many people and also help with the malnutrition that I also had Nancy mentioning in this particular forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okuku. Your sentiments are well noted. Next time, I think we will publicize maybe 2 weeks early so that we are able to reach a wider coverage. But thank you for the observation. Any other comments before we move to closing remarks?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, my mic went off, but you have really presented it very well, that geothermal is just heat from the earth, and Eburu is so much present with a lot of it, and we are really training community on how to dry vegetables there. And I'm happy that the county government is there still in Gilgil, so we can be able to join hands and be able to do more. We are also doing seed banks for the farmers. We are training them on how to prepare seeds for these vegetables and put them in seed banks, working with the groups. So yes, I'm happy to be part of this discussion. And we are excited, and we are hoping we go forward and be able to do more in our community. And when we talk about organic farming, then these indigenous vegetables come first, and a lot needs to be done so that we can be able to keep people away from a lot of medicine, which we realize is as a result of what we are eating. So thank you so much. I'm happy to be part of this, and we will be able to collaborate going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John Wetty. Thank you that you were able to even speak to us. I know your mic had a problem, but thank you so much. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite Professor Oladele Abiudan Olaniran from the University of Akintola in Nigeria to give us the closing remarks. After he gives the closing remarks, we will probably not have any other speaker. And so let me just say that on behalf of the Rift Valley National Polytechnic and on behalf of the Global Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, under whose auspices we are here, I have been your host and moderator. My name is Irene Kimani, a trainer at the Rift Valley National Polytechnic and also a climate change enthusiast. I also want to say that Rift Valley National Polytechnic is the lead for GCSAYN in Tibet, and I'm the lead. And I have a team of 30 volunteers that I'm working with, so I'm not alone. And I want to really thank you for gathering here today and for joining this dialogue. So Professor Abiudan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this great opportunity. It's my pleasure to be part of this great dialogue, and that's actually opened our eyes to a lot of things. And I must say that African indigenous vegetable, like most of the presenters are giving to us, they are not only delicious, you know, but most of them contains a lot of vitamin, minerals, and antioxidants for people. And also, most of these indigenous vegetables, we should know that they are adapted to the local climate, despite the fact of this climate change. And some of them are often resilient to pests and diseases. We should take note of that also. But in all, I want us to know that some of these African indigenous vegetables, they are becoming extinct, giving way to some of these exotic or genetic engineered vegetables. So I think it will do us good if we would try to preserve some of these our indigenous vegetables. And I think it's what GCSAYN can take a lead in that, maybe by documenting some of the indigenous vegetables we have across African countries. So, and I think GCSAYN should be able to do that. So, having said all this, I want to thank every participant. I want to thank the Rift Valley for giving this opportunity for us to discuss, and also GCSAYN for giving us the platform. So on behalf of the Executive Director of GCSAYN, Mr. Divine, I want to appreciate everyone, and I want to say God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over to you, Dr. Irene.
Dr. Irene, Dr. Irene.
Over to you.
It seems Irene has dropped. Having a network issue. Thank you so much, Prof, for that concluding remark. Okay, we have Irene back. Irene, go ahead.
Sorry, I had stepped out for a minute. Now, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of this meeting. I just want to say thank you very, very much. We look forward to having another forum like this. And I hope that in the next forum, we will be able to marshal support from all over Africa once again. Thank you very much. And we can leave it, you can leave at your own pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Alisema nini? Najua nilipata mtu huko. Agnes Mitheko, how are you? Naona bado huko. Hello, Mweti, how are you?